everyone, it's Jasenia. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a how-to video on how to print and cut the printable inserts from my shop. I've had a lot of you ask questions on how to print them. I know a lot of you are completely new to printables and you're a little bit hesitant to purchase a printable because you don't really know how they work and how to print them and whatnot. So today I'm going to go through step by step on what you need, how to print them, how to cut them, how to fold them, and all that jazz. So I hope this is really helpful to all of you who are hesitant in diving into printables, or any of you who have purchased printables and are just a little bit confused on how to work with them. All of my printables do come with directions pages, but I know it's sometimes easier just to see visually somebody doing it. So that's what we're going to do today. It might be a little bit lengthy because I'm going to go through everything step by step according to some questions that I get asked. So it's going to be pretty in-depth. I'm going to start out here with all of the supplies that you need. So I got everything laid out here. The first thing that you'll need, of course, is paper. So I have two different size papers here. The first one is letter size. This is pretty much the most standard paper size in the US. It is 8.5 by 11. So that is the paper size that will fit, I would say, 99.9% of my inserts is 8.5 by 11. I personally like to use the Hammermill paper. It is the color copy digital paper, 32 pound, 100 brightness. I'll link it in the description down below. That is my personal preference. I really like it. The 32 pound I feel like has a good amount of weight to it. It's a smooth paper, this one in particular. And I feel like it has enough weight that it feels like a good quality paper, but you can still put stickers on it and it doesn't feel too bulky. So I personally love this paper. If you feel like it's too heavy for you, I would go down to a 28 pound. Sometimes I do the 28 pound if I'm printing a rather large insert. Some of the weekly inserts are for traveler's notebooks are kind of big, and so sometimes I'll go to a 28 pound, but 32 pound is pretty much what I use. If you are purchasing, there's only one insert in my shop that requires a larger size paper. It's noted on the thumbnail so you know before you purchase, because I feel like this paper, although it's pretty well known, it's not necessarily a paper that most people have at home, so you might need to go out and purchase it, and that is legal size paper, which is 8.5 by 14 size. And this is again just the Hammermill. I get the 28 pound in the legal size. It's easier to get my hands on, and also just because it's a bigger paper and there's folding involved, I think the 28 pound is a little bit better for my personal preference. Of course, you can use whatever you want. As long as the size is correct, then it doesn't really matter what quality it is. That's mostly just personal preference. So the second thing that everyone will need is a paper trimmer. The paper trimmer I have is the Fiskars paper trimmer. It looks like this. You've got a little flap here. It does, you probably can't see it, but it's got a little wire in there to guide you and a little slide for the blade. I do change the blades on here quite often. You can buy replacements on Amazon, and I like to change them just because if you change them, then the blade stays crisp and it cuts your pages clean. This paper trimmer in particular, I would say, is good to cut for like regular copy paper. I would say you could print, you can cut at least 5 pages at a time. If you are using the 32 pound paper the way I like to, I recommend cutting 1 page at a time, just because if you try to do more than that, the blade will kind of ruffle the edges of your paper. So that's for this paper trimmer in particular. If you want a more heavy duty paper trimmer, of course, that's always up to you, but this is just the one I use and it works for me. The next thing that everyone will need is, or not need, I guess this is more of a personal preference, but this is a bone folder. Mine in particular is just a Martha Stewart one that I got ages ago from Michaels. You can use any bone folder. And I just like this because a lot of inserts need to be folded. So if you're using a traveler's notebook insert, of course, you're going to fold that in half. If you are using a lot of my A5 inserts for the weeklies, you have to fold a little flap. So if you have a flap that you're going to fold, or if you have to fold something in half, a bone folder is always just nice to have because it'll give you a nice clean fold, and it just helps you do that instead of having to use your fingers. So it's a really handy tool. It's not necessary, but I really enjoy using it. Now, moving on to more specifics, depending on if you're using a ring bound or a traveler's notebook insert, there are a couple of different things that you might want to look into. So if you're using a ring bound insert, you're going to want a hole punch. This in particular is a 6-hole punch. I got this from Michaels. It's from the Recollections collection, and this is for an A5 6-hole punch. And if you're using a personal size, you're going to want a personal size 6-hole punch. You can also use just the individual hole punches that you can like use just single and do it manually. But if you're going to be printing inserts regularly, I highly suggest investing in one of these. They're not too expensive and it'll just make your life a lot easier. So a hole punch is good for that. If you are a traveler's notebook person, this is again a personal preference. I actually never bind my inserts. I get this question a lot. So as you can see here, I have a ring bound, or sorry, a traveler's notebook insert, and I don't have any sort of binding in here. So all the pages are left loose. I can still take them apart. When you put things in a traveler's notebook, it goes into a elastic band, and that band pretty much holds your insert together. And I don't know, maybe it's a lazy thing, I don't know, but I just don't find the need to really bind it. I never ever staple or bind my inserts. That being said, I know a lot of people do like to have their inserts bound and finished. You can actually sew your inserts. I know there's tutorials on YouTube for how to like sew your inserts if you want to do that. Or you can also use a long arm stapler. So a long arm stapler is kind of what it sounds like. It's basically a stapler. As you can see here, you've got the stapler part and then you've got a very long arm. And what that allows you to do is get all the way into the center of your insert. Because if you had a regular stapler, like you might only be able to get like this far or something, but using a long arm stapler, you're able to kind of, you can move this little thing to where you need it. You can kind of measure. I'm not like the best at this, but you can kind of see where you need it and then you can staple it. So it allows you to kind of get pretty far down into a page and staple there. I do recommend stapling so that the flat side is on the top and then the 2 prong kind of sides are on the back, if that makes sense, just because your traveler's notebook elastic goes right in the center of this page and you don't want those 2 prongs that kind of hold the staple together to snag your elastic. So I do recommend putting the flat side on the inner part of the insert. The other thing I have here is an optional item, and that is a corner rounder. This one I picked up from Amazon. I don't even know what the brand is. It doesn't really say anything on it, but all you do is you stick your paper inside. Try to find a piece of paper. Okay, so you just stick your corner of your paper right inside there, you push down and it rounds the corners for you. I like to do this in some of my inserts and I don't do it with some of the other ones. It's just a personal preference if you want a square edge or a rounded edge, but that's how you do it. I know Michaels sells some and you can get them from Amazon. Just type in like corner rounder type of thing and you should get something that comes up. So that's pretty much everything that you need. Now that you have all of your supplies ready, you're going to want to go ahead and download your files and save them somewhere on your computer where they're accessible to you. Once you complete a transaction on Etsy, you should be taken to a screen automatically that will show you all of the file names of the files that you purchased, and you'll have a little download button right next to them so you can download them onto your computer. If for whatever reason that doesn't come up for you, I'm going to link this page on Etsy down in the description below that explains to you all the different ways that you can find and download your items from the website. So that's there to help you just in case you find you need it. I do recommend downloading and using the directions pages that come with the inserts. Every insert in my shop comes with a directions page and you can use that definitely to help you out and guide you as you print. Next, you're going to want to go ahead and open the file that you want to print. You do want to make sure you're opening it in the correct program. Adobe Acrobat Reader is the program that you're going to be looking for. If you don't have that on your computer, I will link in the description below where you can download it. It is a free program, so that is super easy and you don't have to pay for it. So once you have your file open in the correct program, if you're wondering, I am using an A5 ring bound insert here just to show you guys in this tutorial, but the concept is the same regardless of what insert you're using in my shop. So once you have all that open, you want to select to print. So go ahead and hit File up at the top, go down to Print, and you're going to get a print box open up. So at the top you just have the printer that you're selected, and Then underneath that you have a copies option. You're pretty much always going to want to have one copy selected. The only exception to this is if you have purchased a single insert for a ring bound planner in my shop, then you will want to select however many copies that you want to print of that file. So for instance, if you bought a single notes page and you want 10 pages of notes in your planner, then you will want to select 10 copies. Otherwise, you're pretty much always going to have one copy selected there. Under pages to print, you're going to want to have all selected. And this next step varies depending on what type of printing you're going to be doing. So you have two options for printing. The first is duplex printing, and that means your printer is going to print both sides of the page at the same time. And not all printers have this capability. If your printer does have this capability, there are a couple of different ways you can select duplex printing. So some printers do show the duplex printing option somewhere in this box. It should say, I believe it's a box that you can click and it says print on both sides, and then underneath it you will have an option to flip the page horizontally or vertically, or flip on the short side, flip on the long side, something of that nature. And you can use the directions page to help you figure out which flip on the long or short side you should be selecting under there. If for whatever reason you don't have any of those options show up in this box, you can go down to printer here, ignore that, and right here you should have a few different options. You're going to want to have layout selected, and as you can see here, mine is grayed out just because I don't have a duplex printer at home. But if you do, then this should be an option for you, and you can go ahead and select which way you want to flip your page there. So that is there for duplex printing. If you're like me and you don't have that capability in your home printer, then you're going to be printing one side of the page at a time. So for that, under more options, you're going to want to click the arrow down so you get more options. Under odd or even pages, go ahead and select odd pages only. So this is going to print every other page, and that's basically just all of the front side of your insert here. Then this next part is the same for everybody, no matter which way you're printing. Under page sizing and handling, please make sure you have actual size selected. That's probably the most important thing. So that's the one you want. Under choose paper source by PDF page size, I prefer not to have it selected. You do want to make sure up in here that it does say 8.5 by 11 inches. The majority of my inserts require just 8.5 by 11 paper, which is letter size in America. That's pretty standard. If for whatever reason you notice that it's not saying that here, you can go to page setup, ignore that box, and under paper size you have all the different paper sizes. So we're just doing letter, as I noted. There's only one insert in my shop that requires a different paper size, which is noted in the thumbnail, and it tells you on the directions page, so you're well aware of that, and you can, like I said, go in there and change the paper size if you need to. Under orientation, I like to just have auto portrait landscape selected, super easy. And that's pretty much it. I know it took a while to go through it all, but once you know what you're doing, it's super easy. Just all over here, you got two different options depending on what printing you're doing, and then actual size auto portrait landscape, and then select print. So I've just printed the first side here. As you can see, that's how it came out of the tray. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it onto the back side, and I'm going to reinsert it into the printer tray back the way it came out. So that will ensure that the direction of the pages are the same, so it doesn't come out upside down, and it'll print on the blank side this time. If you are doing this for the first time and you're not sure which direction you need to flip for your printer in particular, then I always recommend just using regular copy paper. That way you don't ruin any of your good paper. And if your tray is not visible the way mine is here, and you can't see which side of the paper it's printing on, I always recommend using regular copy paper. Just mark a little X or a little symbol on one side of the page and do a test print, and you can see which side it's printing on, so you know which way to flip it when you put it back into your tray. But that's it. Takes 2 seconds, super easy, and then we're going to go ahead and print the reverse side. If you are duplex printing, none of this pertains to you. So if you're like me and you need to print the rest of your file, meaning the back side in that second step, then you're going to go ahead and hit File and Print one more time. This box, all of the settings should be exactly the same as we talked about in the first step. The only exception is under more options, you're going to want to go ahead and select even pages only. That way you print the rest of them, and that's the back side of your pages. And then hit print one more time. Okay, now all of the pages are complete, and as you can see, they are facing the correct direction for both ways, and we're going to go ahead and get into cutting. Okay, so now that you have all of your pages printed, you're going to want to go ahead and trim them. So I just lay the pile right on the side of my paper trimmer, and I'm going to start trimming. As I mentioned in the beginning, this particular paper trimmer is not super heavy duty, so I personally like to do just one at a time for the 32-pound paper because it's a little bit heavier, so that's what I do. There is a little wire inside here that helps me line up the page, so I'm going to be using these crop marks to line up where I need to trim. So once I put this down, I've got it lined up here right in the center, and instead of just going ahead and cutting all the way down, which is what you would naturally do, you're going to want to go slightly in. As you can see, I'm starting to cut a little bit down from the top of the page. This way you're not going to cut off everything. If you cut off everything, you're going to lose your crop marks by the last cut, which I know that happens to a lot of you, and you don't know where to cut your last little bit. So go ahead and just start slightly into the page, and same concept here, don't go all the way down. So as you can see, I just cut part of the page there, so it's still connected. Then you're gonna flip over and just do the same thing right on the other side, line it up, go slightly into the page, and don't go all the way across. Then you just do that on all four sides, and you're gonna do this to all of your pages. This last cut, I generally will just go all the way across because at that point it doesn't matter. You've got all of your pages trimmed, so nothing to worry about there. And then I do flip it down on its backside just so that I can keep everything in order, and then I just move on to the second page here. One little thing to note as well is if your crop marks, these are actually lined up pretty well, but sometimes your crop marks are slightly off from the front to the back. If they're extremely off, then you probably did something wrong in printing, but if they're just like a pinch off, you can kind of see it sometimes when you hold it up to the light that they're slightly off. But that happens pretty much with every printer. Not every home printer is perfect, and that's just sort of the nature of doing things yourself at home. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. You can just line it up as best as you can. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put this aside. I'm going to show you one other insert here. This is a Traveler's Notebook insert. It is the exact same concept, but I'm going to show you guys just in case this is what you're printing. Sometimes it's nice to just see somebody doing it on something that looks familiar to what you purchased. So same thing, you just start slightly into the page and don't go all the way down. Okay, so that one is nice and cut and ready to go. The last trimming that I want to share with you is the legal size insert. So if you have purchased the legal size Traveler's Notebook insert, there are a couple little things that I want to note. So if you can see here, the crop marks on this page and this page are two different sizes. So your cover page is going to be a different size to the second page, as you can see there, and the rest of the inserts are actually going to be larger, and that's just due to the fold-out nature of this insert. So you've got your cover page, and then by the end of it, they are all going to be the same size, but you're going to trim them to different sizes just because you have the fold-out in there, and not every single page has the fold-out. Like the cover doesn't have the fold-out, so don't be too concerned if you see that. As you can see, the crop marks are all varied. That's what you are supposed to have. The other thing that I will note is that the second page here actually doesn't fold right down the middle. So if you see this crop mark that is right in the middle here, that's where you're supposed to fold your page in half. So that's your center point of your paper when you fold it. And if you see this one here, you've got a lot more space on this side than you do on that side. That's intentional, and the reason I'm pointing it out is because I think a common mistake is to just go ahead and fold it directly in half, but this page in particular does not fold directly in half. You have longer side on one than the other, so just make sure you keep that in mind. The other thing that I wanted to note is that if you are like me and you have a paper trimmer that is on the smaller side, then you probably won't be able to fit this in here. As you can see, it's just a little bit too long to fit in the paper trimmer. And this is also helpful even if you do have a paper trimmer that fits the entire page, just to fold it beforehand. That way you don't cut off the crop mark and lose it. So I recommend for this insert in particular to go ahead and fold it first and use the crop marks here to guide you. So pretty much your second page is the only one that's not going to not going to fold directly in half. Everything else should pretty much fold directly in half, and I use a bone folder to help me fold. Makes life a lot easier. So this one, like I said, does not fold directly in half, so you're going to want to use the crop mark as a little guide there. And you're going to want to keep them in order so you don't get confused. Everything else, like I said, should fold in half. I'm not going to do the whole insert because it's going to take too long. That's what you're going to do, and then once you have all of them done, not like me, only half done, you're going to want to trim it. So see, as you can see, now you can fit it all in the paper trimmer and you don't have to worry about any of it sticking out. So you're going to want to take it all the way down. So going back to the ring bound inserts, you're going to want to go ahead, and I generally use a previous one, but to be honest, I'm just going to eyeball it because that's most of the time what I do. So I kind of just sort of eyeball where it's supposed to go, and I just fold the flap inside. Yeah, that's about right. I've been doing these for a long enough time that I can kind of eyeball it, and for the most part it comes out the way it's supposed to. So that's pretty much all you do. I would, if you are like not as familiar with them as I am and you need to fold the little flap over, I would just use another insert, or you can measure it, but you can use another insert that you have already folded or that's already an A5 size to measure and fold it over. And then all you're going to want to do is punch it. And there you have your insert, and you just do that to all of them. I generally punch them all at the same time. I just fold them all and then I stick them all in the hole punch, and that's all you need to do for this one. For a regular traveler's notebook insert, the only thing you have to do is just fold it in half. So pretty basic. Just go in and fold it in half, and I use my bone folder. If you want to use the corner rounder, you can do that at this time. This one is not heavy duty, so I do them kind of individually once I fold them. It's easier to do it when you fold them because you only have to do it twice, as opposed to if you do it like this, you have to go around and do it 4 times, so it's a little bit easier to do it this way. I never round the inner corners. I know some people like to do that. If you want to, you're more than welcome to. But that's pretty much all you do, and then you'll get your little booklet for that. Alright, that's everything I have to share with you guys. I hope that was helpful and not too boring, but answered all of your questions. If you do have any general questions about printing the printables, feel free to leave them in the comments down below and I'll do my best to answer for you. If you have a specific question that you're printing out an insert that you purchased from my shop and you need help with it, then please message me on Etsy. I will read the comments on this video, but I assume it's going to live on for a long time and I won't keep coming back to it. So if you have a specific question about inserts that you're printing from my shop and you need help with them, then go ahead and message me on Etsy and I'll help you there. So that's all I have, and I hope you guys enjoyed and this was super helpful. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.